Let me read you what we know about the obstruction report from the Barr summary of the Mueller report. Attorney General Barr said the report sets out evidence on both sides of the question of obstruction and leaves unresolved special counsel views as difficult issues of law and fact concerning whether the president's actions and intent could be viewed as obstruction. So it doesn't say that there's evidence on both sides of the obstruction question. It sounds like there's evidence of conduct that was clearly, I mean, the defense can't both be that he did it out loud and then the insulation be, well, he did it out loud. I mean, their defense is he did it out loud. Barr said we know much of it. But on the other side will be questions of law. What will that look like in your guess?
Well, first, Nicole, this is the pregame huddle right here, okay? and we all have to put our hands in the middle.
You are,
all right?
And
we have to affirm a couple of things. One is, let's avoid frames like bombshell, what's new, oh, I knew that already, that can't be important because that was reported by the Daily Beast 16 weeks ago. I mean, I think we have to zoom back and take a broader look at what's happening at this moment in our democracy, which is a special counsel is going to be issuing a report on the conduct of a presidential campaign, a candidate, and a president ultimately, that amounts to a heap of shameful, unpatriotic, and unethical conduct, where the president sought Russian interference, he received Russian interference, he benefited from Russian interference, and he rewarded Russian interference. Now, whether the special counsel concluded at the end of the day that somebody like Don Jr. did not have the mental capacity, and I use that term specifically to commit a crime because he didn't have the intent, because he didn't understand politics, whatever the basis for saying that a crime wasn't committed, that's important to know. It doesn't fundamentally change the trajectory of us arriving at this moment in late April of 2019, where for nearly 2 years, the country has had to undergo this I think, trauma, a trauma of a president who has done this with the knowledge that the Russians could have leverage over American foreign policy.
Well, you know what? Let's slow down. You make a great point, and I want to bring Ken Vogel in because I think he used the word bombshell because I said, what are you going to look for, Ken, when this first comes out? But I mean, I think. Right, Ken, and you and your colleagues and the Washington Post and you and your colleagues and every news organization has covered this in terms of trying to explain to our viewers and your readers what is new. But you put a much wiser and saner frame around this. And people keep talking about the politics of impeachment before you've even seen it. I mean, will there be any effort to put politics aside for a minute, do you think, Jeremy, and say, what are we looking at? What is this picture? And you know, we cover this as this binary thing. Mueller looked at whether there was witting, coordination, and conspiracy with Russia. John Brennan testified that wittingly or unwittingly, the Russians were all over the Trump campaign aiding them. We have gone so far in terms of parsing this out, but you're right, the big picture disturbing on every level.
This began and this ends as a national security question. There is an intermediate criminal question, which I think the special counsel looked at very vigorously. But at the beginning, at the end, it's a question of what leverage does a foreign adversary power potentially have over the American president, the American presidency, and American foreign policy. And I think we'll learn some of that tomorrow. Whether or not the president gets a temporary bump or a temporary downgrade in the polls, I think is wholly irrelevant to our national interest. The broadest question from a national interest perspective is, how can America stay strong, stay safe, prevent this from happening again, and how can we hold the American people and Congress hold an administration accountable for what it did to allow Russia to have leverage over us?